This is Live Booleans.
So, welcome to this episode of Live Booleans. I am joined by my co-host, Alex.
How you doing, Costa?
And we've also got a special guest, John, as well, who is joining us today.
I'm not the
He's not the special guest, he's one of the guests.
I'm another special guest.
And then the specialist of guests, Grant Kirkhope. Thank you for coming on, Grant.
Thanks for asking me.
Fantastic. All right, well, I guess we'll start off as we usually start off all these podcasts, which is give us a little bit of rundown of how you became to be this icon in the music scene of games.
I'm not so sure I'm an icon. Does that just mean I'm old enough to be long enough that I'm so old that people just go, "Oh, that's that old bloke"?
That picture's an icon.
I can't hear a trombone without thinking of Grant Kirkhope, so there's some level of icon.
There was a BAFTA nomination or something in there as well, I think.
Yeah.
That gives you some sort of credence.
Well, I guess. No, so I guess I just, I did this, went through school like anybody else, and wanted to be in a metal band. Like, I don't know, for some people, never quite got there. Played in lots of local metal bands, and that's all I wanted to do really. And I went to music college. I did a degree in trumpet playing, so I was a classically trained trumpet player. Not really wanted to do that, but I went because it was 4 years without getting a job, right? So I thought I'd go and do that. Left that, played in loads of bands for about another 11 years. And some bands did well and some bands did terrible. And that was basically it, really. I was kind of, playing in bands, going on tour, coming back, signing on unemployment benefit, and then doing it all over again. That's what I did. I kind of thought that would be my life forever. I had a mate called Robin Beanland, who played keyboards in one of the local bands that I played for. And he one day announced that he got a job, and I was like, no one that I knew got a job. We all just, played in bands and messed around. That's what we used to do. And I was 33 at the time, well, probably 32-ish. I was like, what are you doing? He said, well, I've got a job working at a company called Rare in the Midlands, writing music for video games. I was like, what? That's a job, So I played a lot of games at the time, so off he went. And he'd been there about a year and a half, and he said to me, he called me up and said, Grant, you've been on and off unemployment benefit for like 11 years, which I had. He said, don't you think you should probably get a job, And I was like, well, what can I do? He said, why don't you try do what I'm doing, write music for video games? I said, well, I'll have a go, So he recommended that I bought a keyboard module, a copy of Cubase, Atari ST, with 1 meg of RAM, which was big in those days. And it was 1994. And I spent about the next year, sat in my bedroom, right in my mum's house, writing, I still live with my mother, 33. I was writing tunes that I thought would be appropriate for video games. And I sent Rare 5 cassette tapes, because there were cassette tapes then, over the course of 1994. I never got a reply. And out of the blue, I got a letter saying, can you please come for an interview? And I was like, blimey, I can't believe it. So off I went. Dave Wise interviewed me along with Simon Farmer, who was the general manager, and on the Friday. And I got a letter on the Monday saying I got the job. Couldn't believe it. So that was it. I was off. Left my mother, packed my bags, and went to work at Rare.
That was that.
What were the demo tapes that you sent? Was there any familiar tunes that people would know? Yeah,
some of them are. It's hard to remember really, but I know some of them definitely made it into games later. Certainly, Chicago Stealth from Perfect Dark was on there. Also, some of the stuff from band, I think like Mayhem Temple, the initial bit, that that was on there. These are kicking around somewhere actually on YouTube. Some people found them somewhere, so they're about. So, but for the interview, they asked me to write a Batman style orchestral piece, a Mario type platform piece, and something else. It was a guitar-based fighting tune, because they were doing Killer Instinct 2 at the time. They wanted someone who could play guitar. So Robbie knew me, of course. He knew I played guitar for the metal bands we played in before. So yeah, so I had to write those quickly and then take the cassette down with me and play them when I got there. So that's what we did.
So it's just on the spot, sort of bit of pressure there to produce all these different types of songs and yeah, that's good. That's awesome. I want to actually ask you, when you sort of joined onto Rare and you worked on some of those initial games, how early would you actually see the games before you'd write the music? Was it in a beta phase, or was it just grey boxes, or how progressed or far progressed was the game before you actually started to write the music?
So you'd see it right at the start. Like being a staff composer, it's different than being like I'm a freelance composer. And that's different. But like when you're a staff guy, you're just in the buildings, like you're there, right? So you see everything that happens from day one. So I mean, I joined Rare '95, October 15th. So my first job was to work on Diddy Kong's Quest, which was DKC2, convert it from the SNES to work on the original grey Game Boy, Dave's stuff. So that game had already been out. And then I went straight onto GoldenEye. And that game had been there for a little while. It'd been started, but there wasn't a lot to see. So I wrote GoldenEye mostly, or the bits that I did, because me and Graham Norgate shared it. The bits that I wrote, I kind of wrote from just text descriptions. They'd write a few lines of text and say, this is the control room, or this is the dam, whatever. I'd see the movie, of course, So yeah, that, so you're generally there from the start, really. And then I joined on to doing Dream, which had been going a little while, but then it turned into Banjo-Kazooie, so I was on Banjo-Kazooie from the very start, right? So, it's like, most of those games I saw from the beginning, really.
Did it change from Dream when you went from Dream into Banjo-Kazooie? Did the music sound change much in the style?
Yeah, a lot, because like when I joined Dream, Dave Wise was doing that gig.
Yeah.
And it was very like RPG Zelda, like, wander about kind of game. It was there's a SNES version of it first of all, pardon me, and then we got switched to the N64, and then it kind of a more, it was 2D SNES kind of thing that got changed into 3D wander about Zelda sort of thing. So I wrote like 107 pieces of music for Dream, and then it got scrapped.
And I mean, you're working with different hardware there. As well. So I'm also a composer for video games. Right. So I've done a little bit, though I never worked on SNES on N64, but I know you've definitely got your hardware limitations there.
Yeah, so I didn't work on the SNES ever. I only worked on the Game Boy and then went straight to the N64. But Dave was the kind of SNES master. He was brilliant at that.
Yeah.
Limitations aside, it was still very different to when it turned into Banjo. Because it went from being a Zelda RPG thing and turned into a Mario 64 platform, So it was very different. So I had to kind of, and then some of the boss pieces I think have survived into other games. The Dream theme tune made it into Viva Pinata later. So I did reuse a bit of it, but not all of it. Some of it just got dumped.
So what was the because you mentioned there's a difference between the staff musician. What was the title you gave it? Staff composer, and then a freelancer. Because John works on my game as a freelancer, and we want to at one stage get him in as a staff composer, but budget limitations. So I was wondering, what was it like back then? Is it different now? Like the budget restraints, can teams afford to have staff composers? Does it require an extra financial coming in?
So I feel like staff composer is a little bit of not a dying breed, but it's less prevalent than it was. I feel like companies used to have guys on staff a lot, back then. I feel like it's less so now. I feel like it's kind of because when I worked at Rare, you just got given a whole game, so you did all the sound effects and all the music, and that was it. You did the whole thing. So I did all the banjo. Everything you hear is by me, So that's the way it was at Rare. And then I guess as time went on, it kind of split the roles into sound designer and composer, kind of split, and it's more like that now. I don't think you get too many sound design composers kicking about these days. I'm sure there are, but not that I know of.
I don't know about you, Grant, but so even though I'm a freelancer, I've worked with these guys at Melonhead Games for a while now, and I found it's really helpful that we've kind of established the kind of friendship and the common communication and all that. You've been both like in-house and freelancer. Do you find you get that a lot more being at Rare? Like you kind of understood how they think and their vision from the start. Is that a lot different now being a freelancer, or?
A little bit. I mean, it's just about getting to know people, isn't it? I mean, I think that when we were at Rare back in those days, I was on the banjo team for like those guys were the kind of main team we worked for the 12 years that I was there. You get your mates, don't you? Go out and get drunk together and do all that stuff together. Yeah. You do all the great stuff, and I feel like that. You're just mates, aren't you? And you just, it's that kind of unwritten thing that you're all mates together. You against the world. It's like a gang, isn't it, in a way? So we had a great laugh. All the Mickey taking, all that stuff still survives to this day. We have none of us games apart from we're old with mortgages and kids now. I feel like it's just the same as it was really. Like a lot of those guys are at Platonic now, and so still something. There's still a few of them at Rare. So. It's a great to be part of that environment. And Rare was fantastic when I was there. I mean, absolutely loved being in that company. I never thought I'd ever want to leave. Like from the start, it would, having the Stamper family, it was family run. Tim and Chris, the brothers, were the bosses. Tim's wife was in the office. Tim's sister was in the office. The mum and dad ran the canteen. All that stuff. It's all, and the other brother did the grounds, and just all the Stampers. And Tim's wife's dad was. It was just like family-run company. It was just absolutely brilliant. They treated us so well, and also Rare was so special back then. You felt like you were just in Disneyland making fantastic things. So that was a great time for me to be at Rare. I just didn't like it when I left. I'd gone off it. For various reasons. I mean, Tim and Chris had left. It wasn't the same company that I felt like.
Yeah. As happens.
But like being freelance, I do like being freelance a lot. I mean, you get that. I guess you get that thing where it's not as financially stable. You could have a crap year. You could have a great year. You don't know, do you? Being a part of as a staff composer, you're going to be all right. Although I feel like video games is a little bit less stable than it was, and people, it just takes one bad title and you just close down, right? That's the way it goes in video games these days. No one gets a chance to kind of develop anything. You have to be good or you're dumped. But for me personally, working, I find I work better as a freelancer because I know when I work best. I'm better in the morning, right? Like quarter to 9 till 1 or 2 in the afternoon is my best time to write. Because in the afternoons I get a bit sleepy, like we all do, and we just sit there and vegetate, So I like being able to pick my hours, and if I have to work after 6 at night, whatever, then great. I don't mind because I feel like I could do it again. So. And I also feel like I was so grateful for being at Rare because it was a job, right? It was 9 till 5, so you got to work at 9 in the morning and you started writing music at 9 o'clock. It wasn't like you had to sit in a darkened room, wait for the hand of the Lord to hand you a song. It wasn't like that. It's the job. You just like the programmers, just like the artists. You start at 9 and you get on with it, right? Yeah. So I kind of feel like that's been a great thing for me to have in my life because it means I'm very workmanlike when it comes to writing music. I'll sit down and work at it till I get something. I don't get writer's block. I might write something that's completely crap, but I'll write something, So,
so you almost have to go through the 9 to 5 to then be a productive freelancer. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know. I just feel I hear so many composers like, I need to sit in a dark room and wait for the inspiration at night and think. Just get on with it. There's the keyboard's right there. Play the first note, play the second note. Before you know it, you've got the third note, and then forget it. So I kind of feel I don't really adhere to that. That's not what I'm like.
No, it's a good point. I mean, I find that personally as well. We have a lot of like an iterative process with Melonhead, but all the clients that I work with. And so once I learnt that, it's not going to be perfect first iteration or whatever, you just got to make something, send it to them, and then kind of get that feedback and you can keep building on it. And 95% of the time, you can turn it into something good eventually with enough time.
I totally agree with that. I do think that sometimes I do meet younger composers that are like, I'm the composer, I know what I'm doing, the creative director's talking out his ass, sorry, but you know what I mean, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'll just say, that's how you're going to get fired, mate. You're going to get fired. If you can't tell the creative director what to do, you're just going to get fired. I don't care if you know what chords are or what anything of the theories or any of that kind of stuff. No one cares about that. The creative director is going to say to you, I don't care what you think about it, mate. I don't care how good a melody you think it is. I don't like it, and that's it. I learned that very early on. It's just not worth arguing. Like, I just feel like if you're a composer that just wants to be, you want to write a symphony or write a pop song, great. That's your thing. You do it. It's up to you. That's fantastic. But the minute you hire yourself out to somebody else that's going to pay you, you just got to do what they want. Otherwise, they're just going to fire you and fire. There's 8 million people stood behind you who want that job right now. You just got to get fired. It's a stupid thing to do. So and also I think part about being a composer is you just need to be amicable, right? It's not, if you don't like it, just write again, start again. I'll change a bit. Honestly, I think sometimes people think, because I've got a little bit of a name, I'm going to be a nightmare to work with, right? And the amount of people that said to me, you know what, you're really easy to work with. How did that happen? Like, I said, well, because I just know how it works. I don't want to get fired. I want to make the money, right? I want to make something good with you. That's what you need to do. Need to be doing, right? So I feel like people that go the other way, if you're mega famous, like, I don't know, John Williams, perhaps you can do what you like, But the amount of even high-level AAA Hollywood composers that I've watched interviewed that go through the same thing as we all do, that they write something, they don't like it, you write something, you do it again, you do it again. I think it's just the way it is, and it's just get used to it. That's it. Or stop doing it, do something else.
What's the balance like when you're, say, for example, Perfect Dark? You've got there's a certain aesthetic to it, and obviously you play it now and the music suits it perfectly. What's the sort of comparison when it's you're coming up with the sort of tune that fits within the aesthetic, and then you have the creative director who's saying like is the creative director the one that makes the final say on, okay, this fits with this and this fits with that, and how much of it is ideation from your perspective versus from what they want to see or hear in the game?
Well, so yeah, I mean, so just like you said, it's like they're going to send you a brief. When I was doing Mario Rabbids, Davide Soliani, who's a creative director in Milan, and also Romain Brio, who's an audio director in Paris, would send me a brief, and it would say the Mid-Boss Mayhem tune that everyone seems to like the most at the moment. Like it needs to be like this, and so I'd probably write 30 bars, 32 bars, something like that. Send it up and say, this is what I reckon it's going to be like. Like when people work like that, it's great.
Yeah,
you can send up a little bit. You don't write a whole 5-minute piece of music and go, I don't like it. Send a little bit in, like you say. I'm in the right direction. If not, what you think. Let me point me in the direction. Get a yes or no, and off you go. So I like working like that. I feel like, and I think developers tend to like to work like that as well. They don't mind it. I think they'll say, all right, send me a little bit, but it's great for them to have early input, and it doesn't waste any time. So, and also it's storytelling, right? They're going to go, it's a frozen ice castle, and I'm going to think about. I said before, I've said it a million times, but I'm thinking about glockenspiel and celeste and pizzicato strings, it's spiky, icy noises in my head that fit an icy castle, right? It's we're all telling stories. You shut your eyes and just what's it sound like? Before you even touch the keyboard, you've got an idea what you're going to do.
When you hear of George Lucas, he retired, but he's like, I'm making movies that no one's going to see. So I'd have to think, as a composer, you're making music that is just for you. Is the music that you make for you, would people be able to recognize that as a Grant Kirkhope tune, or would it surprise people what you like to play as opposed to what you're known for?
I think they'd recognise it probably. I've only actually written 2 pieces of music that haven't gone into a game. I don't really write music for myself at all. I've written 2, funny enough, trombone concertos, which is a bit bizarre. I've got a mate called Ian Bousfield, who I've known since I was 12 years old, 13 years. We played in together.
I feel like that's a rite of passage of composers that have made it. I'm doing air quotes here. When composers have made it, I feel like they have to go back and do a concerto just to please their classical teachers or something.
It's bizarre because Ian is literally, he's the best trombone player in the world, no exaggeration. Well, not just as we were kids. He was brilliant then. He just got on to be this completely famous thing, and he messaged me a while ago and said, why don't you write me a tune? I was like, well, I might as well. I'll have a go. It's called Kirkfeld, and he's played it. And then I got another
Kirkfield.
Kirkfeld.
Oh, Kirkfeld.
Feld. It's on Spotify. And
then, awesome.
And after that, I got a call from a guy called Charles Vernon, who's a really famous bass trombone player. He's the bass trombone player for the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. I was like, Jesus Christ, So he said, "Can you write me a piece?" So I've just written a piece for him. It's about to come out. It's coming out very soon. So it's bizarre that I've written 2 trombone, but that's all I've ever done, right? So I've mostly written stuff that goes into games. It's the way it is.
Yeah, I saw recently the GoldenEye 64 remaster, or the HD version got leaked. Did you have any input in that, or any input in remastering any of the audio? Was there any plans to do that with the unreleased GoldenEye?
No, so I was just getting on. Well, it was in progress when I left Rare 2008.
Okay.
So and there was never any plans to redo the audio. They just
okay.
All we're going to redo is the look of it and leave the audio the same as it was.
Yep.
All right, cool.
That's a shame, isn't it?
I was listening to some of your music on Spotify just before, and I found your album called Rejected, which I don't know if our listeners have heard yet, but I recommend checking it out because there's some pretty cool stuff on there. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about Rejected?
So that I've pitched for so many things that I never get. People think that you must just get everything all the time. It's that's absolute nonsense. I get nowhere. The stuff that I don't get far outweighs the stuff that I get by 10 to 1, probably more. So most of those pieces on that Rejected album were for TV shows, cartoons that I didn't get, or ones for a game. But the rest of it's all TV, mostly TV cartoons. And the titles give it away a little bit. I didn't know if I should really go into specifics about it. It's just, I mean, I pitched for so many Disney, living in LA, Disney, DreamWorks, Cartoon Network stuff. I've done a ton of pictures and got absolutely and I mean nowhere, not even got past the first hurdle. So I just thought, why not just stick it out? Because it's just sat on my hard drive, and I just thought, I wasn't trying to make any money out of it. I just thought people might find it a bit of a laugh. you know.
I think it's great. There was one on there. I think it's called Sucker Punch McTavish or something. And I was trying to work out what game this was. It's like pub rock or something like that.
Yeah, that was for like a cartoon show. But yeah, it wasn't a game. It was a cartoon show on that one.
Right. Yep.
Scottish, of course. I was born in Scotland, so I am Scottish.
Yeah. What was it like coming back to work on ukulele and getting the team back together? Was it different process this time around, or was it just sort of fitting in like how it was back then?
It was exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, the piss taking was exactly the same. The nickname, the in-jokes were the same. Nothing had changed in 18 years. It was like just going second back in time. As I say, apart from all a bit older, wives, mortgages, etc. You know, like.
What was your nickname within Rare?
I was always Monkey Boy, Chimpos, 8 Boys. Anything to do with monkeys. That was what I was always a Monkey Boy. That was me always.
Why is that? Is there any story behind that?
I don't. You know what? I don't really know. Like I think years and years. I have to tell this story. Years and years ago, when I was a kid, like 14 years of age, my hair used to be all swept back at the front like that. And, and one of my mates said to me, "You look just like Kirkhope from Planet of the Apes." Got that really swept back style in that 70s show, the 70s one. And so it just kind of stuck. And then I told the story, of course, and that was a big mistake. Because from that point onwards, I was like Monkey Boy, Simeon, you name it. So that's me. I'm Monkey Boy.
Wow. Did you? What would you say sort of heavily influenced your style, or what music did you listen to when you were growing up that or either motivated you to get into the art, or sort of plays a little bit of an influence in the music that you make?
So that's a bit hard, really, because I'm a big metal fan, right? So, like, my entire youth, well, still to this day, I still like metal a lot. So, like, when I was like 12 onwards, probably I'm a classically trained trumpet player, but I'm a self-taught metal guitar player, right? So, I did trumpet because I was good at it, but not particularly I wanted to do it really. And I went to college because I thought, I'd not get a job, etc. But I was in metal bands for the entire time, really, most of the time. And so, my bands back then were always things like Van Halen, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest. I was a massive. I think my two biggest bands when I was a kid were like Queen and AC/DC.
Yeah.
So that first AC/DC album really taught me to play guitar. The high voltage. I mean, I know in Australia it was a compilation of like more than one album, but in the West it was like, it was like that was their proper first album, and I loved it. I love Bon Scott to death. I still love him to this day. So that album just opened my eyes to like, Jesus Christ, how does Angus even play so fast? I couldn't believe it. Then it was like, and then my first kind of Queen album was Sheer Heart Attack. And then I kind of went back from then to Queen 2 and Queen 1, but Sheer Heart Attack was the first album that I bought from them. And I played that album until it actually wore out, and I bought another one. I just loved Brian May's guitar. I used to try and play really solos and stuff. So those two records really influenced me a lot early on. And then I got more heavier stuff like, like I say, like Maiden, Priest, Van Halen, and all those kind of bands.
Manowar.
I wasn't quite Manowar, but I do know actually well. Yeah.
You have Van Halen's one of his guitars, don't you?
I do indeed. Yes, I do. That was it. That came much. I mean, that was just an unbelievable thing that happened like later in life to get to that point. But so I went on from that, like Queensryche. I like Nightwish now. I kind of like kind of. But yeah, so I played a band called Little Angels, who were quite a big UK rock band, and they. They did their own number one album in the UK, kind of thing. I played trumpet for them. Me and this guy did the horn section, and we've been mates for years. Before I played for them, I knew them for a long time. But we ended up doing a Van Halen tour, support tour. We were the opening act. It was like 1992, somewhere 91, somewhere. It was a Right Here, Right Now European tour. So we did 6 weeks with Van Halen, which was just amazing for me to get to meet Eddie Van Halen. And he was. I know people like to say, but he was a genuinely lovely, warm man, and I really mean that. Like he was taking any time to sit and chat with you. Me as a guitar player was like, I'm never going to talk to Eddie Van Halen in my life ever again, probably. I need to just get everything out of him that I can right now over these 6 weeks. Just sat there listening to him talk, to him play, because he always had a guitar in his hand. You're like, he was the nicest, most down-to-earth man you could have ever wished to be. And we got towards the end of the tour. We were playing in Paris before we went back to the UK to play Wembley Arena. And he said to me, I'd got a picture taken. I said, there's a picture of me with Nick together on my Twitter, you'll see it. And he said, could you have a quick word with you, Grant? I thought, oh God, I've done something wrong. He took me to this little side room with me and him, just I was like, oh God, what's going to happen here? He said, look, you've got I've got a guitar for you. I was like, what? He said, I'd have had a plectrum from you, Eddie, and I kept that for the rest of my life. I've got it comfy. It's going to be at Wembley and all that, and it turned up. Just couldn't believe it. Just the nicest man in the world. He just had no airs and graces. I could tell you so many stories about
Yeah.
I couldn't believe. I don't know if this is right for the air, but like I remember me and Jim, the keyboard player, were in the toilet, peeing in the urinal, kind of thing. And someone was in the stall, pooping, and the door opened. He just opened the door and he just sat there pooping. He said, "Oh, how you doing, lad?" He just sat there pooping and talking to us, like just didn't care.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, we just sat and had a chat with Eddie.
Yeah,
I was like,
that's
"Poop on the
amazing.
toilet," just,
That confidence.
When you're a rock star.
Yeah, I know, right?
but like, just no airs and graces, and also Eddie he'd kiss you a lot. Like, I know that sounds bizarre. He's a real
In what way, Grant?
I'm seriously, he'd kiss you on the lips, honestly.
Oh well.
Yeah,
remember-
very affectionate man.
But it was passionate, man. Like, I remember one of the shows was in Belgium, and I remember me and the drummer, Mark Richardson, who now plays for Skunk and Nancy. We'd watched the whole show, and we waited at the backstage just to sort of say, "Great show, guys!" Like we used to always do every night because we just loved the shows, And he came out, and was a bit upset. I'm like, "What's wrong?" And he said, "Oh, terrible show tonight, guys." We were like, "What? What are you talking about?" It just blew our balls up, like we couldn't believe it, He goes, "Oh, you guys are so nice." He kissed us both on the lips right now. And we're like, "Is that kind of that?" You just kind of glaze over, like. And we walked back across the car park because the hotel was across the car park. And I'm just in quiet silence, and me and Rich sort of went, "God, Eddie just kissed us then." Like, he's just a super nice man. Irrespective of giving me guitar, he was a super, super nice man. So down to earth, like fantastic.
Would he be someone that you'd want to do compose something with, or who's your sort of idol that you would want to work on a piece of music with? If you could collaborate with someone that is sort of out there.
Well, Eddie's just passed away. Like, I don't, maybe you don't know that. He's just passed away. Months ago. I actually had a brief chat with his son Wolf on Twitter. It was very. I just messaged him to say, "By the way, Wolf, just to let you know that, I don't know if you saw the tweet, but I sort of said to him, your dad gave me guitar back then. He really did change my life. He was those 6 weeks, and Wolf replied, "So, well, I can't believe it. Banjo-Kazooie changed my life. I couldn't believe it."
Yeah. Oh wow,
man.
Man, I was even in
That
tears.
full circle.
Yeah, full circle. Yeah. Wow.
I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Writing. I've never really written. The only person I've ever actually written with in my entire career is Danny Baronosky. And me and Danny did Desktop Dungeons together. And we actually worked on each other's pieces. I've never done that before. Like when I work again with somebody else, we just do our own thing most of the time. I hope it meets up. So I'd love to just sit and watch John Williams write some music. I mean, I'd love to, because he's my absolute hero, But I wouldn't like to write with him because I'm useless compared to him, So.
Got to think with with you saying before you're a metal fan, that there was maybe a creative outlet with the Frigate track from GoldenEye, like with the guitars. My dad used to do the to me just when I was a kid. It used to just make me laugh. We didn't know what it was,
Right.
but that would have to have been like a good little creative outlet because James Bond spy music and stuff, and then suddenly you got this heavy rock. On a frigate ship for some reason.
Yeah, totally. Like I think when I went to work at Rare 95, like I was playing in bands right up to that point, right? So I was long hair, I was Mr. Metal, and I was the only long haired guy there. Actually, they all thought I was a bit of a weirdo. So I used all the metal influences in the GoldenEye track, in the GoldenEye music that I wrote. And Frigate, especially, it's My Faith No More. We Care a Lot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We care a lot. That was my drum beat, and then I stuck the Duran Duran bit from View to a Kill over the top.
Oh yeah.
That's why I did it, right? So metal everywhere really. And also one of the track for the Cradle actually is, I've got a YouTube channel that I never use, right? But there's a track on, if you go to the YouTube channel, there's 3 tracks by a band called Kirkhope, which is kind of my old metal band. And there's a track there called Absolution, or No Absolution. And the guitar riff from that track is the riff that I used in Cradle. If you care to listen to it, you'll notice it straight away.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
It's like a metal riff,
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah. Sorry.
No, metal. I'm a metal fan, so it's going to creep into the music no matter what.
Yeah, it's definitely it just reminded me when you were saying the relationship with Van Halen and his son, and then I've seen a track of, if there's a video I think of you playing with your son, and then I'll get messages from my dad like just being at work, and he'll hear like doors open and close in the stairwell, and he's like, "It sounds like GoldenEye," and I'm like, it's so good like that. But yeah, there's a clip of you and your son playing like a metal track together.
Right, that's not my son. My son doesn't play anything.
I'm so sorry.
No. It's Jules. It's Jules Conroy, family Jules.
Yeah.
That's him. So we're mates, and he's been trying to get me playing a track for ages. He said, look, and he finally put together Grunty's Final Battle, and we did it outside my house, at the back of here. And he said to me, "Come on," and I finally got around to doing it. So I mean, he's a fantastic player. Like he just left me in the dust, It was fun to do. So yeah, I had to practice a bit to get that I had to do it in bits because I was so crap really. I hadn't played guitar for such a long time. But that turned out great. It was good fun to do.
You had to practice, like, looking cool in front of your pool to do it as well.
I know. Because Jules is so good, right? I was like,
Actually, I want to ask you, what sort of tools did you use when you actually composed GoldenEye? Because I know there's an uncompressed version of GoldenEye on YouTube that I always listen to. Was it, what was the process of going from making it and then putting it into this small cartridge with such limited memory?
Yeah, so I think sometimes people get confused about compression on video games. They don't think they quite understand it. Like some people think you write the track, then you compress it like an MP3 and put it in the game. Like you got it. That's not how it works. You got game guys. You know how it works. So I wrote like those 6 tracks. It's like 6 tracks that are all full quality. I was waiting for a dev kit to turn up. I didn't have a dev kit at the time because the N64 circuit board sat inside the Silicon Graphics Indie dev machine. They were the computer of the day. They were super pricey. Like all the special effects in Hollywood were on SGI machines, So it was super expensive. Like it was kind of quite prohibitive for companies to work on the N64 because you had to get a dev kit. It was a lot, like 20 grand a go. So I wrote 6 tracks while I was waiting for that to turn up, and then I was like, oh right, now I'll put it in the machine, and Graham Norgate would be in there, while I said, now it doesn't work like that. You've got to take it to bits and get every instrument, crunch it down, resample it. I was like, I see it.
Because each sound is triggered from the game live, isn't it?
Right. So you make your little MIDI orchestra or MIDI sound set. It sits on the cartridge, and then you put in a MIDI file, and the game plays the MIDI file. And the MIDI file on each track's got a program number, so it pulls the instrument that you're gonna, track. Program number 20 is a guitar or whatever it is. So that's it's all in real time. But because GoldenEye was the first one of the early games on the N64, it's always the same with Nintendo. The early games get a much smaller memory space, like an 8 megabit, I think. And it got to be bigger as the games went on, but right at the start, so it was even worse. Like at that point, we're even compressing MIDI files. You know how small a MIDI file is, right? It's like it's tiny. So even to the point of where, if you'd got a drum pattern that was going do 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 through the entire track, you'd write 1 bar of it, you'd put loop points at the end of the bar, and you'd give it a nut and say repeat 5 times, just to save those extra little bits of information. It was so tiny. Like, now you wouldn't care. That's so small. So, like, a lot of the instruments were like, there was 16 kilohertz or less. Nothing was above that. So, like, you think 44.1's CD quality, right? Like, it was at least 16, and bass. Anything that was bassy was like 8 kilohertz, so you could get it in there. They're all 16-bit, but they're all low down sample quality. So we'd get the instrument, whatever it was, we'd resample it down. We'd try and add back in some high-end EQ because it was just going, like that. So you got all the high end because you lost all the sample rate, and then compress it and then stick it into the machine. So things were super super tiny, to the point where we had to loop cymbals because having a cymbal going with a long decay, it was just far too. So you had to kind of go. Get the attack, and loop it, and attack, which is awful. So it'd go, and then add an envelope to it. So you'd go,
just to get that whole feeling of it fading out, kind of thing.
That's what the cymbals sound bloody awful because that's what you could do with it. Yeah.
So you were quite involved in the actual implementation of the music then?
Yeah, we entered everything ourselves. So like we'd enter all the sounds. You'd put them into this big long text files. Would be a line of text that would give the key mapping and the pitch and all that stuff. You'd do that, and then you'd compile it and add it into the game. So we're pretty hands-on back then.
Is that stuff you had to learn on the job, or was it something that you knew before Rare?
No, it was definitely on the job because it wasn't. It was proprietary. There was no middleware. There was no like F mode or Y's. Like
Yep.
It was just proprietary.
Wow, that's insane. Is there any music that you created that you sort of, or something that you were most proud of that you wish people heard more, but it was in these sort of hidden areas in games and that sort of stuff? Because obviously that's how some of those games were back then.
Yeah, I know, but even so, like even to this day, if you do work on a game, it doesn't get very popular. People don't hear it. They just don't. People don't generally. I really find that people don't really search through the stuff of mine that they don't know. Like having Spotify's handy now because you can sort of go, that like you find that Rejected album. It's like people go, I don't know what that is, or the Kingdom Amalur DLC tracks, or things like that. They didn't probably know those there. So it's quite good. There's nothing much that I wrote I don't have an awful lot that I write that I don't get doesn't get used. I don't have a lot of stuff laying over apart from the stuff I pitch for. I never get. I've plenty of that. Games wise, I've not got that much that's kind of lying about, not doing anything.
Yeah.
When you're working on games, or when you've worked on games that are already IPs, such as James Bond, and I mean, I think you did Star Fox Adventures and Donkey Kong.
I didn't do that. Didn't do Star Fox.
Oh, you did? Oh, well, Wikipedia is a filthy liar then.
I played guitar on it, but Dave White did that. I played a bit of guitar on it, but Dave did the entire soundtrack.
Oh, right, okay, yep. But so when you've gone onto one of those IPs that already exist, have you gone and looked at, the music that's already there much for inspiration, or have you gone, I want to create something new?
I think when it came to GoldenEye, like, people of my age, when I was a kid, like if a James Bond movie came out, it was the best movie of the year, with the best effects, the best John Barry music was just amazing, like, all that stuff. So getting to do GoldenEye, I was like, I can't believe it. I was super excited. Yeah. So I knew the soundtracks really already, Yeah. We bought a double CD, had all the pop songs that precede the movies, we had all that as well to listen to, so that was great. But like doing something like Mario plus Rabbids, that was like equal parts exciting to equal parts terrifying, because I think at that point I was the only Western composer to ever worked in a Mario game. You know what I mean? It's like that's ridiculous. Koji Kondo is a master. He's the legend, right? He's the Jedi master. We're just Padawans, right? To think that he would listen to the music that I wrote and thinking, it's a bit not that good, or it's a bit scary. So that was super scary but exciting to do it. So, and I played Mario games, so and I got to rearrange the castle theme from Mario 64. Which was. I loved Mario 64. It's probably my favourite Mario. Because I just started at Rare. We all got N64s. That's the first game we all got. We all loved it. It's just amazing. And so to get the chance to rearrange that, was just fantastic. And I was worried about thinking, oh God, he's going to hate it, or they're going to moan at me for being rubbish, kind of thing. So I kind of split it into bits: a bit of him, bit of me, a bit of him, bit of me. It all turned out great. I know they liked it in Nintendo. But that's one of those moments that I think I'll remember for the rest of my life. The fact that I got to work in a Mario game, it's just amazing. And then doing the Super Smash Brothers thing with Banjo, that was also one of those things that you can't believe that they asked you to do it. Because, on the Smash Brothers, they always use the Japanese guys to do the remixes because they're all fantastic. The Japanese guys are just brilliant at it. Why would you need me to do it? You've got those fantastic people over there who can just do it in their sleep. You don't need to that was equally, and also the fact it was Banjo, and the fact when it came out, the reactions on if you watch the video, people went absolutely crazy. Everyone's in tears. I was in tears. I never really expected that massive outpouring of emotion when people saw it, and it was so heartwarming and humbling, to them to ask me to do a tune. But never mind that, even if I didn't do a tune, but just to see they were genuinely touched by having that character turn up in Smash, and that's the thing about games, right? That is fantastic to see those reactions and those kids crying and whatever, and I'm we're all crying together. Just absolutely fantastic. Those moments are going to be parts of my life I'll never forget.
Yeah. It was the best troll, the announcement ad when it showed the what's it
Duck
called?
Hunt.
Duck Hunt.
Yeah.
That's right. I had literal goosebumps after that. It was amazing.
Like when the Jiggy jumped across the screen.
Yeah.
What was that?
Oh, that's amazing.
That's an important thing, isn't it? You have to be a fan of what you're making. It's because even if the audience you're making it for doesn't know music or doesn't know games, they're going to tell that you're not a fan, or it would carry differently. Yeah,
I've talking about Mario Rabbids. I really believe in when the game got a leak to it before it came out, and everyone was like, "What, Mario Rabbids? That's going to be a disaster." And it really just out in the team. But we all, when I first heard about it, I was like, "That sounds like a weird combination," but it works so fantastically well because the Rabbids are crazy. They're just they're like the Minions, really, like the Pediatric Minions. They're crazy, and they're just stupid, and it just works. The comedy's great. You got Princess Peach and little Rabbid Peach there, being a bit jealous about Mario, and it's just all, and the reason for that is, the Ubisoft Milan and Paris, who worked it together, they, especially Milan, they've got such a Nintendo passion at that company. Yeah. They absolutely, worship everything Nintendo does, and it really bled into the game. And that, like you say, that's not something you can manufacture. That has to be in your heart, or you have to feel that passion. Like the way banjo was back then, the team passion, all the stupid sense of humour we had, and that kind of nonsense, that it just bled into the game, right? They made it funny and all that stuff at the same time. That's the same with Mario Rabbids. That team believed in it so much, and loves Nintendo so much. They were all feeling like I was feeling pressures about writing the music. Like you want to make sure that you don't ruin something that's so fantastic. So that just, you can't manufacture that. You either feel it or you don't.
Yeah. I think one thing that helps fans connect with your music so well is that I found when listening to your music, there's often a lot of strong themes, motifs, and stuff like that. I'm going to have to throw in some music terminology here because that's the only reason I've been brought onto the podcast.
So, he's the music guy.
But I think it sounds like there's strong melodies, strong themes there. Is that something that you find you naturally do, or is that something you consciously try to put into everything you do?
I think both of that, actually. I think I do naturally do it. I do really try. Like for me, this is my kind of personal bugbear about music in general, in movies and games these days. Less so games, but more so movies. I kind of feel like that old massive theme thing is just kind of dying out a little bit. And I really miss that. Maybe it's just I'm an older guy and I like it the way it was. It's better in my day, etc. And the young guys don't care about it. You're young guys, so but I mean, I really miss that Darth Vader or Luke's theme or Harry Potter or whatever it is, or Back to the Future, or those great themes that you can't forget for the rest of your life, right? Like why is that dying out? Why is that not happening anymore? It just pisses me off to beyond distraction. Like I just don't understand it. I kind of feel like all this ambient stuff, and not even so much like you go see a big giant blockbuster these days. The score's massive and epic and fantastic, but it's completely unremarkable. You walk out that, you forget, you can't remember a note of it. Like, I don't like that. Like, I kind of feel like there's that video on YouTube somewhere where it's the guy walking around the street with a microphone saying, "Can you sing me Harry Potter? Can you sing me Star Wars? Can you sing me Indiana Jones?" And then he goes, "Can you sing me Spider-Man?" No. Can you sing me, any of the big Marvel franchises? No one can remember a note of it. Like, that Marvel franchise is $1 billion gigantic behemoth, and you can't remember a note of the themes. Like, that's disgraceful. Apart from, I will say, I think the Avengers theme tune is super strong.
It is.
And why is that? Because it's Alan Silvestri, he's an old school composer, did Back to the Future and God knows everything else, and knows how to write a bloody good tune. Like, why is that? If it was Marvel, I'd be like, you need a great theme for every single bloody character on this. Why isn't it there? So that really just pissed me off. And funny enough, there's a director over here called Jordan VOGT Vogt, and I forgot his last name. I can't remember why. I'm just completely blank. And he did that movie, King Kong, Skull Island. It's a big director. And we kind of made friends a little bit on Twitter. And I've just exchanged a message with him saying, "Oh, by the way, love your movies, etc." And he was just sort of saying, "Yeah, nice to, I'm a big fan, etc." Kind of thing. But he sort of said, "Why are the tunes in movies not are in video games?" I said, "Christ, I really don't know why." He's a young director, 30-something on the way up. He's making big movies now. Yeah. He's the director on the Metal Gear Solid movie. So it's so nice to hear people like that who are going to be the stars of tomorrow, or even so much these years already, like talk like that. Because I'm sick and tired of not hearing bloody tunes in movies. Why is that? Why? I don't understand it. And I kind of feel like it's hip to maybe not do it in directors, right? But the average man, I believe the average man on the street, or woman on the street, who's gone to see, when you're walking out the theatre, watching a movie, you're humming the tune to yourself as you go out the door, it's bringing the movie back to you, all the bits that you remembered, it all comes back. Like, for God's sake, why would you want to do that?
It's a good point. I mean, I may be wrong with this, but I feel like there's more of an emphasis on the actual sound design now, even in music, rather than the core melodies and stuff like that. And I'm hearing that in pop music as well, kind of across the board. I think it's definitely since electronic digital audio workstations have become so accessible and everything. You can make any sound in the world. Possibly people are exploring that at the moment.
So you're saying it's more like formulaic or something?
Not formulaic. It's more about. I find this when I'm working with clients that often I'll get feedback based on the sounds that I use, like instruments I choose and things like that, rather than melodies, specific things like that. Which isn't good or bad, but it's definitely a trend that people seem to be exploring at the moment. But I think you're completely right, Grant. It's so important that we don't forget, how powerful motifs and themes can be, because they really can be so emotionally powerful.
And also, I do feel like because everything's so powerful these days, you can put one thing on a keyboard with a synth patch and it sounds amazing by itself, right? Like when I started, you couldn't do that. You could do it, but you couldn't put it in the game because you had no space, right? So a lot of the guys that I know from back then know how to write a good tune. That's all you had. You had to have a decent set of chords, a decent tune, and cross your fingers, hope for the best, right? That was all you had, right? So I kind of feel like it's too easy to create something that sounds unbelievable, but there's no substance to it. It's like it's just superficial, So I just feel like that's how, in some respects, half the problem. You can make something sound fantastic without really doing anything.
Do you think the limitation then almost incentivized you to have to write just good, short, concise, music that is memorable, as opposed to now, like you mentioned, you can create anything. It can be. You have no limitations. Do you think that played a part in having that iconic sound back then as well?
No, I do. I think it makes you be more creative. You've got to think outside the box, and I hate that phrase, but you've got to. It's like you've got to work with what you've got. There's no, like when I did my first game on the Game Boy, you got 3 channels and a noise channel, and each channel plays one note each, and that's it. It's monophonic. So like you have a note for the melody, a note that implies a harmony, a note for the bass, and then the 4 channels like just noises for effects and like drum noises, like So, and when I first did that, I thought, oh god, I'm going to hate this, but I really enjoyed it in the end. Because it makes you try to get stuff out the thing that you didn't know it could do. And so I really feel like I really value those days of me writing that stuff. Because, I feel like it's cemented like that melody in making melodies in my head forevermore, So I truly believe that melody is going to make a big return. I feel like the older directors who are perhaps thinking along those, the newer guys are like big video games players, like they all are. Who are all, listen to Zelda, listen to all those great tunes that you can remember. Like there's so much great melody writing especially Nintendo, but like everywhere, like people really like that. And like you go to video games concerts now and they're sold out and all that stuff, like, because they like the bloody tunes, right? How many times is there an ambient track at number 1? I don't think there's ever been an ambient, Lady Gaga doesn't write ambient. She writes bloody good melodies with catchy tunes, or Ariana Grande, or any of these pop stars, Well, I'm not so much her, but like, a lot of the people they write a really good tune that's got hook to it, and everyone's right down the street singing it to themselves when they go to work in the morning, Like,
I think we're going to have to interview Brian Eno after this and see what he says about that.
Like, I'm not saying you want wall-to-wall melody by any means, but Star Wars would be half the movie without those themes. Indiana Jones would be half the movie without those themes. The Avengers would be half the movie without Alan Silvestri's themes. Like, they contribute such a lot, and it's just like sometimes I'm doing any movie. I work on some movies from time to time. You sometimes get the director saying that kind of detracts from the scene. I'm a bit like, look, if the music detracts from the bloody scene, you need to write a better scene, mate.
Yeah.
It's like it's just a tune, right? If it's distracting from the action, for God's sake, people are daft. They're watching it, not forgot. Anyway, I guess it's my personal bee in my personal bonnet. I'm afraid.
That's when you lose the job on the
right.
on the film.
See, I'll take the melody out. Don't worry.
Yeah. Maybe that's another aspect of what it is. It's that it's now easier for anyone to become a director. So like, because you mentioned Star Wars wouldn't be it without the music, and then like you hear that George Lucas during the first movie didn't want original music. He was just going to go with orchestral pieces that already exist, and then I don't know if it was his wife or someone on the set was just like, are you mad? Like, this is your chance to make something. So that's an example of he was surrounded by the right people at the right time to say, no, you need to do this. So maybe because it's easier to be a director now, I mean, everyone carries a camera in their pocket. Not saying they're making blockbusters on iPhones, but all that knowledge is getting pushed by the wayside because they're going after their vision and they're not letting in outside thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible to make a great movie without great music. It's completely possible. Of course it is. But I just feel like it adds such a lot on top if you get that right. Just think of the really great movies that they've all got great tunes, right? I mean, they just are. Like the real greats, whatever they are, like they've all got great bloody tunes. As
soon as you think Back to the Future, there's just the tune straight in.
I was going to bring that up too, because I rewatched it again actually. So our local drive-in movie cinema could open for like one day during the whole COVID lockdown or whatever it was, and they showed Back to the Future. Yeah. And listening to that again, I realised there was a thing every time Marty shows the picture where his
Yeah.
family members slowly
little jingle.
they've got like the chimes or whatever they play.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
like you don't even notice that first watch,
Yeah.
but it's that whole thematic thing again.
Yeah,
It really adds to it.
Yeah, it's that little kind of C major, F sharp major. It's that tritone thing, right? It's not,
Yeah.
it's not that key, but it's that what it is. You know, I nicked that from Banjo Kazooie. You know, but I mean, I feel like those little bits, they're just spectacularly good, right? They just make you go, oh, it's a magic in it, isn't it? It's just magical. Like, you know,
Yeah, so much.
you know, like, you know, I'm a massive John Williams fan, I know, but I mean, like Harry Potter, like you only got to hear and you hear that, that's it. That's it. Like, you know, you are straight away. Like, why is that not done? You know,
I get that with the trill in Click Clock Wood. Every time I will hear that in my head. That is my safe space. That song.
I don't want to put myself quite in the same bracket as John Williams, but it's nice to hear.
Well, that's it. Because your fan base now, like people our age, you know, they grew up with it, so they wouldn't know John Williams from Grant Kirkhope and stuff. They're just like, I like this, you know. It's and then you all just like you're like hot magma at the start, and you're all solidified together, and you're now just part of it.
Yeah, I must admit, I do think people's music tastes have become way more eclectic than they used to be. Well, my son's 18, right? He's a big games player, of course, but his playlist doesn't have any popular music in it at all. It's just games music. Like that's incredible. Like if you think about, that's the thing now. All his friends are the same. You know, my daughter is more of a popular music fan, whatever you want to call that. She's like 15, he's 18. But like, you know, his playlist is only video game music. Like that's amazing. You know, when you think back to when I was a kid, you know, it was like you bought your albums and all that. You know, like to this day, people have got Metallica next to Lady Gaga next to me or I don't know somebody else. You know what I mean on the playlist. You know, because people they just pick bits up. You pick bits up that you like, don't you? And just put it all together. That's your thing, right? You know, I think that's fantastic. And the fact you've got, like, you know, I truly believe that video game music will be the classical music of the future. I really believe. Like, I really think that video game music has reintroduced generations to just purely instrumental music all over again. Like, I feel like there's no vocals on it. Like, you know, it's like like when I first went to work at Rare, because I've been playing in bands, I was like, hang on a minute, there's no one to sing it to sing the tune. I was like, what do I do? You know, I'll use something else. You know, so I feel like that's a great thing that people just will listen to instrumental music now without any vocals on it because they've heard video games a million times and they're used to it, and they may listen to a bit of Beethoven or a bit of Stravinsky, or I don't know. It's got a tune. They know it's got a tune. You know, they can recognise it, and because it's got a tune, they can because it's not just some kind of wacky shit going on. It's got a tune at the top. They can equally go, oh, that's a tune like a video game tune. Maybe the ears get open to something else. You know, I really feel like that. I really feel that whole instrumental thing it's changed. People are reacquainting themselves with that.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Our local classical FM radio station has cottoned onto that, and they've started doing 1 hour per week, I think it is, which is a video game special. And they've got game composers that do awesome. Like interviews, and they play.
Which one was that?
Classic FM. It's ABC radio, I believe.
Oh wow!
If I'm wrong, let's edit that out.
Yeah.
But it's good that they're starting to see that, and I think the classical scene are realising, all right, this is our chance to stay relevant in like mainstream, sort of mainstream.
Yeah, and I think also that Task FM in the UK did the same thing, right? And BBC Radio 3, which is like, that's amazing. Like they're super not like that at all, and they're started to have a video game show because the viewing figures, listening figures go at that hour like these massive like people tuning in for that hour. They're not daft, you know. And I do think like Classic FM in the UK they do that. Every year, it's about now. Actually, they do this the 300 Hall of Fame. Like this, and like I got voted in quite a few times.
Yeah, awesome.
I got to like number 12 for the
Oh, wow.
It was me, Nobuo Uematsu for Final Fantasy, and somebody else. God, who's the other ones? There's three of us used to always get voted in. Not so much now, but it was a kind of couple of years when we got super high. I couldn't believe it. Uematsu was in the top 10. I was like number 12. I was like, Jesus Christ. And like all the Tesla fans, going, what's this crap? You know? But
they're listening to the Banjo Kazooie soundtrack and they're going, this is classical music now.
But they always use nuts and bolts because that's proper orchestra, right? So I guess
that's true.
They won't play anything that isn't orchestral. I think it's fair enough.
Yeah.
But you know, I feel like because they love the controversy because it got them in the news, right? Classic FM's got video games and all that stuff.
Oh, everyone wins then.
So they're not stupid, you know. And I mean, and I do feel like there's plenty of music that is very classical in video game music. Plenty, like even when I wrote that Viva Pinata stuff, I'd say that's pretty classical, really. I think that classical music, probably who like the greats and all that, realize that they're not going to write any more music. They're all dead. They're not writing anything new. But we are, and some of the stuff that we write is valid. I'm not saying we're next to Mozart or whatever, but I'm just saying that there's plenty of great orchestral music out there from video games that could easily fit into those slots, and you could enjoy it. It's not crap,
And now that it's a way, like listening to the music, the game music isn't subject to just playing the game. Like I'm not sure if you know about I don't know what you call it, like a cultural phenomenon of lo-fi. Like all these YouTube channels that pop up, they're just live streamed lo-fi tracks.
Lo-fi hip hop.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know if you listen to much trip hop in the late 90s.
Right.
It's just this like landscapey kind of music, but everyone uses it. Not everyone. People you see in the live chat, they're basically either studying, trying to work, like they're doing it alongside it, which I think has a parallel to video games because it requires the player to concentrate, so it needs the music to accommodate that. But it's a lot of people who seem really stressed out, and they're using this as a escape. And I think there's a parallel with video game music. It's not now. I don't have to boot up the N64 to listen to Banjo-Kazooie. I can, get it by any means. Well,
and relive that experience.
Yeah. While I'm doing a stressful thing like studying for year 12 or exams.
I totally get that. And I think my daughter, I'd say she's 15. She listens to the Minecraft stuff because it's super relaxing, right?
Yep.
And Daniel did a great job on that music. It's a thing, right? I think you're right. I think people. I just think it's as I said before, it's reintroduced people to instrumental music all over across the board, right? And because I think you can find anything you want in video games somewhere. There's metal, there's everything, orchestral, you name it. There's from all sides of the spectrum. I think it's a fantastic thing.
I was wondering if I could throw in a question, sort of related, but talking about Banjo-Kazooie again. Just because I was talking to a friend last night, a fellow composer, Dakota Sauvé, I think is how you say his last name.
I thought it was Suave.
Suave, yeah, Sauvé. And he really respects your work, and he was wondering, with games like Banjo-Kazooie and Ukulele, where you have a lot more of the kind of upbeat styles, as opposed to, when you've worked on World of Warcraft and those styles. Are there certain either inspirations that you looked at beforehand or certain music theories or anything that you kind of look to help you kind of really nail that playful aesthetic?
I think for Banjo-Kazooie, like at that time, I was really massive Danny Elfman fan. I still think he's fantastic to this day. But so I was trying to think of a way, because we were trying to take on Mario 64. That was our goal, to try and beat that game, right? Even though it's fantastic. And Nintendo at that kind of poppy jazz style. It's really good, and they're really good at it. And I'm really bad at that kind of style of music. I thought if I tried to copy that, it would be awful. So I tried to find something that could be my take on that platforming thing. So the first piece I actually wrote for Banjo-Kazooie was actually Click Clock Woods, the spring version.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And that's only because I was trying to write something jolly that I thought was a general platform piece. It wasn't. There was no level at that time. And that's the first. They said, Tim Stamper and Greg Mail said to me, "Right, dream's over. You haven't been at the company very long. Write us something you think is going to be appropriate for a platform game." I was like, "Oh God, I have to try and find something to do." So I wrote that piece of music first, and then the game started proper, and I went back to doing And so I was trying. Initially, when I got to Mad Monster Mansion, I'd written 2 different tunes for Mumbo's Mountain and Treasure Trove Cove at the start. They were different to what's in the game. And I got to Mad Monster Mansion, and I was trying to think of a way to use dark harmonies, but not scare the kids,
Yeah.
So I was into Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
And that's got that umpa in it.
Okay.
With dark harmony, I thought, and so kind of my little light bulb went on, and went, oh, so that's how you do it. You can have as dark chords as you want, but it's quite jolly rhythm, and that people don't. It's not that scary for the kids, right? But it makes it sound dark. Yeah. So I kind of stole one of his chord sequences from
look, we all do it. We just don't say it.
Yeah, exactly. So because at that time, Batman was the first orchestral soundtrack I think I bought apart from Star Wars. But that first Batman movie, it just blew me out the window. I couldn't believe how fantastic it was. The music was just unbelievably fantastic, and that initial Batman motif just just amazing. So I kind of nicked bits of Batman with the umpire, and that became Mad Monster Mansion, right? So and I thought, this is working out really great. So then I went back and went, I need to find something. Also, he used a few tritones in Beetlejuice.
Yep.
I was like, that sounds, so I went back to Mumbo's Mountain and thought, I need to redo this. And then I hit on the whole tritone thing, and that just was the entire game. Then it was just tritones everywhere, right? So that's how, and I kind of looked at the tritone as being, the tritone's the furthest point from the, in an octave scale, the tritone's the furthest point away, right? So I kind of went banjo as one, the personalities are opposite. Banjo's a bit of a thick, bit of a stupid bear. Kazooie's a wisecracking, sarcastic bird. So that at that point, it kind of matched the tritones. Banjo's one and Kazooie, the furthest point away from each other in personality-wise. It matched the music. So so I redid Mumbo's Mountain and redid Treasure Trove Cove. And then, I got more and more to the tritones as the kind of game went on after that. So I felt like it gave it a real quirky, kooky, oddball sound, and I thought that matched the game. But there was wasn't some kind of grand plan. It was like, this sounds all right. I'll just mess about with this for a little while. It wasn't like I had a real vision. It was like, you just do it up for the best, don't you? I didn't think people would talk about it 20 like I thought, give it 6 months, people have forgotten it. For 6 weeks, they've forgotten. So
that's why you got to be careful when you're writing music. I found I these days I make sure I like everything that I write, because sometimes people will run with it and put it out there on the internet, and you can never take that back.
I know. Obviously, I liked what I wrote, but I didn't think people would still talk about it, or especially that quality. Like you think, especially on GoldenEye too, you think it's not great sonic quality. Everything's 16 kilohertz. It's like not great, but
I still pop it on and listen to it like all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the whole point about that is that people don't. Like my wife's, we're both metal fans, right? She was a kind of glam metal fan. I was a heavy metal fan.
Yeah.
She still would listen to crappy old Poison on cassette tapes and think it sounded. And I was like, it's more muffled and mumbled, like she didn't care. I really feel like us composers, right? I think that you can get too wrapped up in that. You really can. Like the average man on the street really doesn't care what it sounds like half the time. It's like it's got a tune they like, or they're not that high fidelity. I think we spend an awful lot of time having high sample rates and all these things that we can do now, And I don't think it's nice to have it and it's good quality, but a lot of people don't really notice it being not great mixes or not great mastering or whatever it is. They don't really notice it.
Yeah, it's a good point, because at its core, it's basically, do people connect with this? Does it make them feel that emotion that you want them to feel, or feel a good emotion in some way?
Yeah.
And it's a good point, because I have to constantly remind myself when I'm doing mixing and mastering. I think it was Andrew Sheps, the mixing engineer. He said the only thing that matters is what comes out the speakers. And these days, a whole lot of people listen to stuff on their phones, and they're like flicking through Twitter or whatever, and they hear your music. And so it's that balancing act of not getting too wrapped up in making everything absolutely perfect, but still making it sound like the message you're trying to get across actually comes out of those phone speakers.
And you're listening to it with this, when you're making it and composing it and mixing it, you got headphones on, you got this huge setup going, and it's not how people are going to consume it at the end of the day.
No, they've probably got these Beats headphones that got like massive bottom end.
Yeah, exactly.
So you kind of all the bottom end then, it's like,
that's exactly right. Well, I mean, that's one thing I do. So my head unit in my car has a double bass function on it. So when I'm making music, I'll play it in my car and drive around in the middle of the night with double bass on. Just to see whether it blows out my speakers.
It's a good idea. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Because then you have like Beatles music, which is mixed isn't the right term, but its recording is pretty sloppy. Like you can hear them talking in the background. You listen to Hey Jude, you listen to it loud enough, you can hear John Lennon go "fucking hell" when the rumours of where that is.
Yeah, and it's been bounced to track a lot of times as well. So you lose quality every time you bounce it right to get that. You only had 4 tracks in the early days, like. The drums are on one side, and it's like it's just like no one seems to care, do they?
Yeah. Hey, Grant, do you find many people you talk to know the story behind the "come and have a go" thing?
I mean, if I went to like a video games thing, probably yes, but I guess not everyone knows that. I guess it's still I always think that. I've told these stories that many times that everyone should know. But I'm not that famous, right? I'm just no one composer. So it's not like everyone knows it all. Like there's a gazillion people out there who've never heard of it and they don't care. So I think that if you're in a video games environment, maybe, but otherwise probably not.
Yeah. So I won't make you tell the whole story again, but if you could just summarize, this was a phrase that you used. It was in one of the songs, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah. So on Mayhem Temple in Banjo-Tooie.
Yep.
That was originally going to be in the first game. We didn't make it. The level didn't make it in time. So me and the Greg Mills, the lead design guy, he's still at Rare to this day doing Sea of Thieves. He's still a good mate, of course. Like, we had a bit of a laugh with it, trying to think of something that Mumbo could say. Well, not say, but like for his voice. Because all the characters have got like funny little voices that, with tiny memory rights, so just have to kind of make silly things and then like the random pitch, random and like that. And then, so I came up with this, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. We thought it's a funny little phrase. So I recorded myself, because I did Mumbo's voice. I recorded myself doing that phrase, but doing it like come and up, like that. And then I cut it into bits. And then it was in that tune, but in that game, and it was in the background. And we thought it was quite funny. We thought no one really noticed it. But then it didn't make the game. And then it came to having Mumbo's voice. I thought, well, I've got these samples. I just use them. So I just put those samples into the voice part, and it selects at random all over the place. And that's his voice. So I don't think anybody really knew that until I kind of spilled the beans about it later.
Yeah, because one of my friends actually told me about it, and I'm like, nah, that's not true. And then I went and listened to an interview with you. I'm like, no way. Yeah. So it's amazing what you can hide in these things.
Well, no, I did a little interview with it. Not an interview. I did a little video on some Twitter somewhere. I went through each sample and just let everybody hear what it actually sounds like, And it just says that phrase. And then we had that Uminaka. That was his. That's because I had a testicle condition at the time, and the doctor poked it and went, Uminaka, and that, So,
what you're saying is you take inspiration from your life around you often.
Absolutely.
From his testicles.
Yeah, we thought it was funny that, because knackers are like balls in the UK. In the US, it isn't really that. We thought Uminaka was funny, and then it was there, so I thought it was quite funny as well. There's stuff like that all over Banjo, one of those things.
It's good that the culture spills into every aspect of the game, including the audio as well.
Yeah, but that's what makes Banjo the game it is, I think, and Mario Rabbids. I think that makes it the game it is because people, the things you laugh about amongst yourselves will probably make everybody else laugh as well. And just stick it in there. It's just it makes you laugh. It's probably going to make everybody else laugh. So I don't know. I think the Banjo games have got lots of that. And all the games that Banjo and Grab by the Ghoulies, which is like Grab by the Knackers, of course.
Yeah.
That's equally got that kind of humour in it. Any game that Greg did, that humour is just in all of it.
This is a confirmation that people are going to have to go back through all your games and find all these little Easter eggs now.
All these references of Knackers.
Yeah, probably.
This is such a silly question, but I have to ask it because I don't know if it's because becoming a game developer makes me think about it more. What did your office look like at Rare? Like where you worked? I have an imagination of how you worked always, like when imagining composing, and it's boring in my head. It was just like a keyboard up against the wall, but what did your office look like?
So when I first went to work at Rare, it was called Manor Farmhouse in Twycross, and Twycross is in the middle of nowhere. It's like literally all that's in Twycross is like Rare. There's a private school that was next to Rare, and a tractor depot that fixed tractors, and a pub, and that was it. It was just, there's nothing. It was the middle of nowhere, right? Because people would work there like, Jesus Christ, that's where they had to have a canteen because there's nowhere to go to eat lunch. There's no shops. There's nothing.
Yeah, right.
So it was an old manor farmhouse, and when they first bought it, they kind of converted the farmhouse to be a dev for the devs were. And lots of outbuildings, like outbuilding stables and stuff, and barns, and they slowly converted the stables and the barns into being dev blocks. So that's how it was. So it was like an old kind of, not that big, it sounds like a great big building. It was just a normal sized house, really, more or less, but maybe a little bit bigger. And so that turned into being the kind of admin area where the admin stuff was, and the IT guys were there. And then the outbuildings all got turned into, slowly but surely, into dev barns. And we always used to call them barns. And there were long, thin buildings, they were like, you had a path, not a path, like a corridor down the middle. It wasn't a corridor really. It's a carpet stripped down the middle, and the offices were off to the side of it like that, with sliding doors. And there's no roof, so it was all open. It went above your head. There's no sound cut off. It was like all open at the top. So and that's where we all were. We were on these dev barns, and you had these coded keys. Your key would only get you into the barn you were working at. So they kept all the teams super separate. So that the Killer Instinct team couldn't get into the Banjo team, or vice versa, or the Donkey Kong team, or the Conker team, or whatever it was, or the GoldenEye team, or Perfect Dark team. You couldn't get into any of the part to see what they were doing, and it kind of encouraged a little bit of friendly rivalry amongst the teams at Rare, which was great. But being an audio guy, because you often switch projects or got into other projects, your keys generally got you everywhere. So we used to see everything, but most people didn't. So we used to wonder about, we could see everyone's game, and that's good, what's going on there, like that. So my office was like, I don't know, 15 feet. I'm about 10 feet, maybe. So there's a window in front of me like that. So we got the central corridor, and you got your things off it, and they're kind of not diagonally, like horizontally to the thing. Yes, horizontally? No, that's the wrong word. Anyway, so you walk in, and it'd be like that wide, you'd open the sliding door, be a window in front of you looking out into whatever it was, a field, probably with a cow or something like that. And then your keyboard would be there, like a desk that kind of went round the sides like that, the whole thing, so, like that. So it sounds fancy, it wasn't really. That was me. And of course, you were always in with the where they used to have a music block at Rare, where all the music, so there was Robin, Graham, Evelyn, and Dave. But there wasn't a room when I was the last guy to work there at that time to get hired. So there was no room in the block. So I got put in this thing called the old chicken shed, which was like an old room that used to be the chicken shed. I was in there for a while, and then I got moved into the banjo team. And I was the first music guy to actually be in with the team at Rare. So it was good that. So we, got part of the team, got the camaraderie, all the nonsense. It was great fun, So, but of course you got to wear headphones all the time. You couldn't use speakers at all because everyone's just right next to you. So, and then after a while, Rare moved a mile down the road to where they are now. It's just called, what's it called now? It might be called Manor Park, which is this big, gigantic bit of land that Nintendo, I think, paid for, part of the deal when they bought Rare. That was a very fancy building, had a proper studio, big motion capture area. But it's had a main building which contained all the admin, the music block at the top, and the studio and the motion capture and the canteen part. But all the teams are still in still the same barns. So they built barns just out from the main building in straight lines that were like that. So it's just the same. But they were 2-story. And so that was it. That was still open plan, still sliding doors, very similar to the way it was at the old place. And I was in the music block. I was back in with the team again. So I wanted to be. I liked being in with the team. So I was in the team, I think, until maybe Viva Pinata. I moved into the music block then, I think, or the music part. But I was in with the team too, because I liked it. So still on headphones, of course. So that was it.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I love that concept of having the barns, dev barns.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was like that.
Fantastic. All right, well, I think we should wrap up. We've gone way over our 1 hour we said would be. Thank you for coming on. It's been fantastic hearing all your stories. What's next for you? Any projects that you can talk about? Are you going to be on the new Perfect Dark? I want to know.
Hand on heart, I've not talked to those guys at all. I'd like to be in that game. I really would.
Yeah.
I'm trying. I really am trying. Not getting nowhere right now. What else am I trying for? I can't talk about just the latest thing I've talked about is World of Warcraft.
I've got to ask the question just to see what we can like.
It's hard. I can't do that.
Yeah,
I'm working on two indie movies. There's one called The Handler and one called Shadows for this Michael Matteo Rossi, who's the director that I know. That's really cool. I did that the Wrong Rock animation thing I did a year or so ago. That was it got into the Oscar long list but didn't make the short list for the short animation movie. That's on YouTube. It's called The Wrong Rock. That's super high quality. It's funny enough, the guy that directed that was at Rare when I was there. It's called Michael Kaywood.
Oh, well.
He works in Hollywood on blockbusters like Pirates of the Caribbean and giant things like that. And he does his own stuff as well. I'm doing a little short animation. Do you want to write music for us? I said, yeah, fantastic. And it's had over 1 million views on YouTube. It's done really well.
Wow.
But it's there's no talking. It's about little mushrooms. I know it sounds bizarre, but I guarantee if you watch that movie, you'll put a smile on your face. It's a really feel good. You'll love it. I guarantee it.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Fantastic. Where can people find you on Twitter? You're pretty vocal.
That's my main one. I've got an Instagram at a what's the one? TikTok, but I'm too old for that really. I think my main point of connection is Twitter. That's my, as I say, that's my main. And I'm quite happy to chat on there. I kind of feel like I've got a few followers. It's funny to have a bit of a chat and I laugh at them all. I don't mind them taking the mickey out of me. I don't mind that. I think it's part of the fun, really. And sometimes you get the odd arsehole, that you have to block, but not very often.
Yeah.
I think that's a sign that you've made it when you get the arseholes.
Well, I just like that. I think, if I think to myself, if I could tweet at John Williams and just say, "Hey, John, I think you're fantastic, mate." That's it.
You wouldn't be the arsehole to him.
No. And he's just like, "Cheers, Grant." I'd probably keep that tweet on the wall for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I really feel like, obviously, I'm not putting myself in that bracket at all. But if people want to tweet at me and say, I always try to reply to people and say, "Oh, thanks for liking Banjo," whatever it is. I know what it's like to be a fan, right? So, and I'm not an egotistical person. I don't like that nonsense. I'm just a bloke that writes music, right? That's it. So I'm happy to chat with anybody, really. And I like that environment. I think it's, when I'm sat writing music, when I press save or whatever, I might have a quick look at Twitter, a quick type away, and then back to the music. And I'm always sat looking at it during the day. So it's a brief distraction for 5 minutes to do something else writing music. So I really like it.
We always ask this at the end of our shows to every guest. If you could give one piece of advice to, say, in this circumstance, game composers, what would that be?
Always say yes. That would work. Like, when people ask you to write music, you go, "You know what? I'm not all right. Sack him." They don't care about that. They just want to hear you say yes to everything. So even if for a while it was quite popular over here to get asked to write marching band music with a hip hop beat, right? I was like, I've never done that. I haven't a clue what, and I'm like, yeah, I do that all the time. It's my favourite thing I do. In my spare time, I write that. You know what I mean? It's like, I really feel like you've got to be confident. You've got to never say no, even if you haven't got a clue what they want. Just Google it and find it. Saying even just when you go, enough of that, next guy, they don't want to hear that. Directors of creative directors, whatever they have, got enough problems without having a problematic composer. And also, I think the composers, a lot of the time, we're quite introvert guys, really. And like I always say, we sit in in rooms like this, for 8 hours a day mostly, not talking to a soul, right? And that's how we like it. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to talk to people. I like it by myself. So I think that you've got to be able to put on, even if it's not you, you've got to. Like, I can be the jolliest guy in the world, right? I'm not like that at all. That's my wife. She'll soon tell you I'm a miserable bugger most of the time. So you've got to be able to project that image, that fun, cracking have a joke. They want that fun guy they can have a laugh with, that that doesn't give them any problems. Be that guy, even if it's hard. And I know it's hard because I have to do it. It's not my natural way at all. But I feel like get used to doing it. Because that will get you a long way. Being amicable, not argumentative, always saying yes, no trouble. If you want to work, you've got to prostitute yourself, right? That's the only way. If you want to write, like me, I've written a couple of trombone concertos. It was fantastic fun. I didn't have to ask anybody what they thought about it. It's like, I'm writing it, it's my piece of music. You don't like it, get stuffed. I don't care. This is great, right? You want to do that? Fantastic. You want to work for somebody else and get paid for it a different way? You better do what they want.
It is a really good point, though, because I think as composers we do get caught up in our own, like, this is our art, it has to be perfect for us kind of thing. But at the end of the day, if someone's paying you to do it, it's for them, and if it's for an audience, it's for the audience, and if it's for a product, it's for the products. And I find I have to constantly remind myself, this isn't about me, this is about making this product the best product it can be.
Yeah, that's totally right. I've got no time for people who want to get paid for it like that and not agree with it. I don't like that. If you want to go write your own stuff, great. You can sell it, great, fantastic. If you're going to be a media composer, which we all are these days, you've got to write what they like. Otherwise, they're just going to find some. There's so many fantastic composers out there. Like, there's thousands and thousands of really people that are shit times better than me, without a doubt. I don't doubt it. When I hear young composers these days, I kind of go, oh Christ, how did they write that music? I'm crap compared to them. So you just, don't be argumentative. It's a waste of time. Yeah. It'll get you nowhere.
Yeah. Staying humble and not basically thinking that you're everything, even if you've done a lot, basically.
Yeah, be humble, but be brilliant. That's what I would say.
That's the way, brilliant.
That's the way to be. Be humble, but be brilliant. Try your absolute best, but don't think you're the best thing in the world, because you're not. There's always someone better than you. Probably 10,000 people better than you. Certainly in my case, I'm sure there are. So it's like you can't think like that. You've got to stay hungry. always. I want to get better. Like, I'm dying to get better. I'm sick of being like I am. I want to be better than I am. It's like that's it.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a great piece of advice. Thank you very much for coming on, Grant.
So it's been a real pleasure.
A real
Grant.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for asking. Get the old bloke out now. Then it's all right, isn't it? Get a trip out for a bit of a chat.
Yeah, let us know when you're coming down to Australia.
Yeah.
Down to SA.
Yeah.
I've only been once. We came for a honeymoon, like it was. I think we went to Brisbane, Cairns, Sydney, and Melbourne.
Everyone skips Adelaide.
Everyone skips the
Well, that's all right. Well, yeah, it's all right. Everything's open here at the moment, so if you manage to get down, then we can go down to the pub.
Yeah.
I'd like that. My wife's got relatives, actually, I think, on Kangaroo Island. Is it Kangaroo Island?
Right. Just off the coast here.
Awesome.
Yeah, she's got relatives on that island, actually, so bizarrely enough. Her parents have been a few times. We didn't get to there, but I guess someday we will. I'll tell you what, honestly, hand on heart, I loved Australia. I felt like all the best bits of Britain and the best bits in America. Everyone was super friendly. It was a bloody good laugh. We loved that. We loved being there. It was brilliant.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We'll hold you to that. When you get to Kangaroo Island, send live Booleans a message and we will all meet you for a beer.
If you're buying the pints, mate, I'll be there. No trouble.
We will buy it. It's fine.
We'll do it.
This time.
Thanks, Grant.
All right, gents.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
You have a good day.
Anytime. Good luck with it. Good luck.
Thanks for tuning in.